I stared at the empty closet, my wedding dress the only thing hanging there, pristine and mocking. 3 hours before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, and my soon-to-be husband had vanished, along with all his belongings. The note on our bed simply read, "I know everything. Don't try to contact me." Those 8 words shattered my world, and I had no idea why. My name is Elena Winters, and yesterday should have been the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became a nightmare I'm still trying to wake up from. It started with a missed call. I was at my final dress fitting when my phone vibrated with my fiancé James's number. I couldn't answer. I was literally being pinned into my wedding gown, but I smiled, thinking he was just calling to tell me how excited he was for tomorrow. How wrong I was. When I got home to our apartment, something felt off immediately. The silence was too thick, too complete. "James?" I called out, my voice echoing against the walls. No answer. I walked to our bedroom, my heart already beginning to race without knowing why. The closet door stood open, his side completely empty. No suits, no shoes, no watch case on the dresser. My fingers trembled as I picked up the note lying on his pillow. "I know everything. Don't try to contact me." I called him 14 times in a row. Straight to voicemail every time. I texted until my fingers cramped. Nothing. I sank to the floor, my mind racing. What did he know? What had I done? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I was still sitting there an hour later when my phone rang. My heart leapt, but it wasn't James, it was my best friend and maid of honor, Tess. "Are you ready for tonight? The girls are all wondering if we should bring the champagne to you or..." "He's gone." I cut her off, my voice hollow. "What? Who's gone?" "Elena, what are you talking about?" "James. He's left. Moved out. He's gone." The pre-wedding dinner was supposed to start in 2 hours. How was I supposed to tell 60 people that the groom had disappeared? That the wedding was, what? Postponed? Cancelled? I didn't even know. Tess arrived 20 minutes later with my sister Olivia in tow. They found me still on the bedroom floor, now surrounded by crumpled tissues. He left a note saying, "I know everything. But I haven't done anything." I sobbed as Olivia wrapped her arms around me. "There has to be an explanation," Tess said, already on her phone, trying James's number. "Maybe it's cold feet? Maybe." He took all his things, Tess. All of them. This wasn't impulse. This was... I couldn't finish. Olivia's face had gone strangely pale. "When did this happen?" "I don't know exactly. I was at my fitting from 10 to 12, and everything was normal when I left this morning." He kissed me goodbye. Olivia and Tess exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. "What?" I demanded. "Do you know something?" Olivia hesitated. "Ryan came by the house earlier today. He was acting strange, asked to borrow Dad's good bottle of scotch. Said something about making things right." Ryan, my brother, the last person I would have expected to have anything to do with this. "Why would Ryan?" I started, but then my phone buzzed with a text. My heart stopped when I saw it was from James. "Ask your brother about Michael. Ask him what he showed me." Michael? I hadn't heard that name in years. Michael Bennett was my college boyfriend. Ancient history. We'd dated for nearly 3 years before breaking up amicably when he moved across the country for graduate school. That was 5 years ago. I looked up at Olivia, confusion, and the first spark of anger burning through my shock. "I need to talk to Ryan. Now." I found my brother at our parents' house in the backyard with that stolen bottle of scotch. Half of it was already gone. The wedding rehearsal dinner should have been starting in an hour. Instead, I was confronting my inebriated brother while my fiancé was God knows where. "What did you do?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Ryan looked up, his eyes bloodshot. He didn't seem surprised to see me. "You should be thanking me," he slurred. "Thanking you? James is gone. He left." "What the hell did you tell him?" Ryan took another swig from the bottle. "The truth. That's all. The goddamn truth that you were too selfish to tell him yourself." I snatched the bottle from his hand and slammed it down on the patio table. "What truth, Ryan? What are you talking about?" "Michael," he spat the name. I told him about Michael. "Michael? My ex from college? What about him?" Ryan laughed. a bitter sound that made my stomach turn. Don't play dumb, Elena. The affair. Your ongoing affair with Michael. The one you've been hiding from everyone, especially James. I stared at him, convinced I was hallucinating this entire conversation. Affair? I haven't seen or spoken to Michael in 5 years. We broke up when he moved to California. That's bullshit and you know it, Ryan said, suddenly standing. I saw the emails, the hotel receipts. Every time you said you were on a business trip to San Francisco, you were with him. My head was spinning. What emails? What receipts? Ryan, I have never cheated on James. Never. I showed him everything, Ryan continued as if I hadn't spoken. The emails where you two planned your meetups. The pictures of you going into his apartment building. He looked almost proud. I've been tracking this for months. I couldn't let you marry James while carrying on with someone else. He deserved to know. Those don't exist because there is no affair. I shouted, drawing the attention of our mother, who appeared at the back door with a concerned expression. Everything okay out here? She asked. No, Mom. Everything is not okay, I said, turning to her. Ryan has somehow convinced James that I've been having an affair with Michael Bennett. James left. The wedding is off. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. She's lying, Ryan said, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, doubt. Maybe, for the first time. Ryan Andrew Winters, my mother said in a quiet, dangerous voice I hadn't heard since we were children. What have you done? I protected James from being trapped in a marriage with a cheater, he said, but some of the conviction had left his voice. Show me, I demanded. Show me this evidence you supposedly have. Ryan fumbled for his phone, scrolling through it with clumsy fingers. It's all here. The emails, the pictures. He handed me the phone. I stared at the screen, my blood turning to ice. There were emails. Dozens of them. Between me and Michael, planning meetups in San Francisco, talking about how much I missed him. Except they weren't from my email address. They were from an account I'd never seen before, ElenaWintersOfficial@gmail.com. Not my email. Never my email. Then there were the photos. Grainy, distant shots of a woman with dark hair entering a building. The woman was roughly my height and build, but her face was never clearly visible. Ryan, I said slowly, fighting to keep my voice steady, this isn't me. This email isn't mine. You've been had. Someone created a fake account. No, he shook his head. No, I verified everything. The timing of the trips matches your business travel exactly. Because whoever did this knew my schedule. My business trips are on my shared calendar that half our family and friends can access. A horrible thought occurred to me. How did you even find these emails in the first place? Ryan suddenly wouldn't meet my eyes. I got an anonymous tip. Someone sent me screenshots, said they were worried about you and James. An anonymous tip, I repeated flatly. And you didn't think to, I don't know. Talk to me about it first? You just collected what you thought was evidence and went straight to James? The day before our wedding? I wanted to be sure, he mumbled. I've been following this for weeks. Following me, you mean? My voice rose. Stalking me? Taking photos of random brunette women and convincing yourself they were me? Creating some elaborate conspiracy in your head? I saw what I saw, he insisted, but his words carried little conviction now. My mother stepped forward, her face a storm cloud. Ryan, if what Elena is saying is true, you've done something unforgivable here. It's true, I said firmly. I have never cheated on James. Not with Michael, not with anyone. I turned back to Ryan. And now I need to find him and explain this insanity before it's too late. Finding James proved harder than I expected. He wasn't answering calls or texts from anyone. Not me, not his best man, not even his parents, who were bewildered and concerned when I finally got up the courage to call them. He texted us that the wedding was off, that you had betrayed him, his mother said, her voice tight with worry. Elena, what's happening? How do you explain to your almost in-laws that your brother fabricated an affair based on anonymous tips and grainy photos? That their son was somewhere nursing a broken heart over a betrayal that never happened? It's a terrible misunderstanding, I managed. Ryan told James something that isn't true, and I need to find him to explain. He might be at the cabin, his father suggested after a long pause. He goes there when he needs to think. It's where he went after his last breakup. The cabin. Of course. James's family had a small property in the mountains about 2 hours north. We'd spent a magical weekend there last fall when the leaves were turning. I thanked them and hung up, already grabbing my keys and purse. I'm coming with you, Olivia said, following me to the door. No, I shook my head. I need to do this alone. You're too upset to drive, she argued. And if he doesn't believe you, you might need backup. She was right. I was in no state to make that drive safely, and having a witness to corroborate my story might help. I nodded, too exhausted to argue. As we drove, I filled Olivia in on everything I'd learned from Ryan. That's insane, she muttered. But who would set you up like this? Who would create a fake email and stage photos? It was the question I'd been asking myself since seeing Ryan's evidence. Who hated me enough to try to destroy my relationship? Who even knew enough details about my life and Michael's to make it convincing? And then it clicked. Vanessa, I breathed. James's ex. Olivia looked confused. I thought they broke up years ago, way before you two met. They did, but she never really let go. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. She showed up at his office about 6 months ago, wanting to catch up. James told me about it, said she seemed off, too interested in his personal life. She kept asking about me, about our wedding plans. You think she orchestrated all this just to break you up? That's some Fatal Attraction level stuff, Elena. She works in IT security, I said grimly. Creating a fake email account would be child's play for her. And she lives in San Francisco now, the same city where I supposedly kept meeting Michael. But how would she know about Michael? Or your travel schedule? I grimaced. My social media. I've posted old college photos that included Michael. And my work trips are usually announced on the company website since I go for conferences and client meetings. Olivia was quiet for a moment. Okay, but how does Ryan fit into this? Why would he be so willing to believe the worst of you? That was the part that hurt the most. My own brother had been so ready to think I was capable of sustained deception. Had been willing to blow up my relationship rather than give me the benefit of the doubt. Ryan and we haven't been close since the thing with Dad's company. 2 years ago, our father had been planning to retire and hand over the family business. Everyone assumed Ryan would take over, but then Dad had surprised us all by announcing he wanted me to run things instead. Ryan had never forgiven either of us. So she knew exactly which buttons to push, Olivia said softly. Send the evidence to the person most likely to believe it and act impulsively. And Ryan took the bait. Hook, line, and sinker. The cabin was exactly as I remembered it, rustic, secluded, perched on the edge of a stand of pine trees with mountains rising in the distance. James's car was parked out front. My heart hammered in my chest as Olivia pulled up beside it. Want me to wait here? She asked. I nodded, suddenly terrified. What if he didn't believe me? What if the damage was already too deep to repair? I approached the cabin slowly, rehearsing what I would say. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open to find James sitting at the rough-hewn table, his back to me, shoulders slumped. He didn't turn around. I told you not to contact me, he said, his voice hollow. And I'd respect that if I had actually done what you think I did, I replied, stepping inside and closing the door behind me. Now he turned, his eyes red-rimmed and haunted. The sight of him so broken shattered my heart all over again. I saw the emails, Elena. The pictures. Don't insult me by denying it. I'm not denying what you saw, I said carefully. I'm telling you it wasn't me. The emails are fake. The woman in those pictures isn't me. Ryan showed me everything, he said, as if that settled it. Ryan was duped by someone who wants to hurt us. I moved closer, daring to sit across from him at the table. James, think about it. Have I ever given you any reason not to trust me? In 3 years, have I ever lied to you about anything important? He looked away. Everyone said you were too good to be true. So your solution was to believe I've been carrying on a secret affair for years rather than consider that maybe, just maybe, I actually am who I appear to be? The woman who loves you more than anything. The emails weren't from my account. I cut him off. Look at them again. Really look. That's not my email address. It's a fake account someone created to frame me. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. But the trips to San Francisco were for work, like I always said. Check my company's website. They post about the conferences I attend. Call my boss. Call my colleagues who were there with me. Anyone. The photos are of some random brunette woman whose face you can never quite see clearly. I finished for him. James, please. I'm begging you to use your critical thinking skills here. He was silent for a long moment. If what you're saying is true, why would Ryan do this? What would be his motive? He didn't create the evidence. He was sent it by someone who knew he'd be likely to believe it and act on it without verifying anything. Someone who knew he's had issues with me since Dad chose me to run the company instead of him. Who? I took a deep breath. I think it was Vanessa. His eyes widened. My ex? That's... He trailed off, probably about to say crazy, but then reconsidered. That's a serious accusation. She has the technical skills to create fake emails. She lives in San Francisco. She showed up at your office a few months ago asking questions about me and our wedding. And she never really got over you, did she? James ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized from whenever he was processing difficult information. She did seem intense when she came by the office. Kept saying I'd made a mistake, that we were meant to be together. Look, I slid my phone across the table to him. Call Michael right now. Ask him yourself if we've been having an affair. Here, I'll even dial for you. I pulled up Michael's contact information. We were still Facebook friends, and his number was there. I hadn't called it in years, but I prayed it was still valid. James stared at the phone for a long moment before picking it up. He hit the call button and put it on speaker. 3 rings, then, hello. A male voice, vaguely familiar from my distant past. Michael? This is James Hamilton. I'm, Elena Winter's fiancé. A pause. Oh, hey. Is everything okay? Is Elena all right? She's fine. James glanced at me, then continued. I need to ask you something directly. Have you and Elena been in contact recently? Elena? No, not for years. Not since we broke up in college. Why? You haven't been meeting her in San Francisco when she comes for business trips? Michael's confusion was audible. What? No. I live in Seattle now, have for the past 2 years. I haven't seen Elena since, honestly, it must be at least 5 years. James's expression changed, the doubt in his eyes giving way to confusion, then dawning horror. I see. Thank you for clarifying. Is something wrong? Michael asked. Just a misunderstanding. Sorry to bother you. James hung up and sat there, staring at my phone. I don't understand, he finally said. Someone went to elaborate lengths to make you believe I was cheating, I said gently. They created fake emails, possibly photoshopped pictures, and sent it all to my brother, knowing he'd be the perfect messenger. They wanted to destroy us, James. He looked up at me, real anguish in his eyes. I believed it. I believed you would do that. Without even talking to you. You were shown what looked like solid evidence by someone you had no reason to distrust, I said, though the pain of his easy belief still cut deep. Ryan is family. Why would you question it? Because I know you, he said, his voice breaking. I should have known better. I should have trusted what I know about you, not what someone told me. I reached across the table and took his hand. We both need to have a serious conversation with Ryan. And probably Vanessa too, though proving she did this might be difficult. James squeezed my hand. Elena, I'm so sorry. I don't know if you can forgive me for doubting you like this. I'm angry, I admitted. I'm hurt that you could think I would betray you that way. But I understand why you believed it. What about the wedding? He asked quietly. Well, it was supposed to be today, I said with a weak attempt at humor. I think that ship has sailed. I can't believe I ruined our wedding. He looked stricken. You didn't ruin it. Whoever set this up did. I stood, moving around the table to sit beside him. We can reschedule. Have an even better wedding once we sort through this mess. He pulled me against him, and I felt the tension begin to leave his body. I love you, he whispered into my hair. I'm so sorry I doubted that. I love you too, I said. Now let's go back and deal with my brother. The confrontation with Ryan was both easier and harder than I expected. With James beside me and Michael on speakerphone confirming he hadn't seen me in years and had never lived in San Francisco, Ryan couldn't cling to his certainty. "I don't understand," he kept saying. "The evidence looked so real." "Because someone wanted it to," I said. "Someone who knows how to create convincing fakes. Someone who knew you'd be willing to believe the worst of me." That hit him hard. He flinched visibly. "I need to see these anonymous tips," James said. "I want to trace where they came from." Ryan pulled them up on his phone. The messages had come from an email account with a random string of numbers and letters, clearly a burner account. "Forward these to me," James said. "I know someone in IT security who might be able to trace them." Ryan nodded, subdued. "Elena, I don't know what to say. I thought I was doing the right thing." "The right thing would have been to talk to me first," I said, the anger I'd been suppressing finally bubbling up. "To give me a chance to explain before you blew up my wedding day. My relationship." "I know." He looked genuinely remorseful. I was jealous. Of you. Of your relationship with James. Of the way Dad favors you. I let that cloud my judgment. It wasn't enough, not nearly enough, but it was a start. "It's going to take time for me to forgive you," I told him honestly. "But we're family. We'll work through it." Ryan nodded, accepting this. "And now," James said, squeezing my hand, "we need to find out for sure who did this." It took 3 days for James's IT friend to trace the anonymous account. 3 days of explaining to friends and family that the wedding was postponed, not canceled. 3 days of fielding concerned calls and messages. 3 days of trying to repair the trust that had been so badly damaged. But in the end, we got our answer. "It was definitely Vanessa," James said, hanging up the phone with his friend. He traced the email account creation to her IP address. And get this, she used her work computer to do it. Not very smart for an IT professional. "So what now?" I asked. "Now we confront her," James said grimly. "And then we press charges if necessary. What she did, it's criminal. Identity theft, fraud, harassment." The confrontation with Vanessa was less satisfying than I'd hoped. Once presented with the evidence, she broke down, alternating between tearful apologies and bitter justifications. "You were never right for him," she told me, her eyes blazing despite her tears. "I was trying to save him from making a terrible mistake. By fabricating evidence and manipulating my brother?" I shot back. "That's not love, Vanessa. That's obsession." In the end, we decided not to press charges, on the condition that Vanessa seek professional help and stay away from both of us permanently. Her employer, however, was less forgiving when they learned she'd used company resources for her scheme. She lost her job, which seemed like karma in action. 6 months later, James and I stood together at the altar, finally having our do-over wedding. It was smaller than the original plan, more intimate. Only the people who had stood by us through the whole ordeal were invited. Ryan was there, though not as a groomsman this time. Our relationship was slowly healing, but trust takes time to rebuild. As I spoke my vows, looking into James's eyes, I thought about how close we'd come to losing everything because of lies and manipulation. How easily trust can be broken, and how much work it takes to restore it. "I promise to always give you the benefit of the doubt," James added to his vows, an unplanned addition that brought tears to my eyes. "To trust in what I know of your character, not what others might say." "And I promise to always be worthy of that trust," I replied. Later, during our first dance, James held me close and whispered, "I'm sorry it took almost losing you to realize how precious what we have is." "We're stronger for having gone through it," I told him, and I meant it. The ordeal had forced us to communicate better, to be more open about our fears and insecurities. Ryan approached us at the reception, looking uncomfortable in his suit. "I just wanted to say again how sorry I am," he said, "and that I'm happy for both of you." I hugged my brother, feeling the last of my anger toward him dissolve. "Just promise me one thing," I said. "Anything. Next time someone sends you evidence about someone you love doing something terrible, talk to them first." He nodded, a smile finally breaking through his solemn expression. "I promise." As the night drew to a close, James and I slipped away from the reception, ready to begin our honeymoon and, more importantly, our life together. A life built on a foundation that had been tested and ultimately proven strong enough to withstand even the most elaborate deception. Ready for our happily ever after? James asked as we drove away, the wedding venue growing smaller in the rearview mirror. I squeezed his hand. After everything we've been through to get here? Absolutely. Sometimes the path to happiness isn't straight. Sometimes it's full of unexpected detours and painful obstacles. But if the destination is worth it, and James was definitely worth it, then you find a way to keep going, to fight for what matters. Even when it means confronting family, exposing lies, and rebuilding trust from the ground up. Our story wasn't the fairy tale I'd always imagined. It was messier, more complicated. But as James and I drove toward our future, I realized it was also more real. And that made our happy ending all the more precious.